Hey friends, this is Shannon from Hippie Dark Art. I'm back for another video, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about something from my childhood while I swatch these beautiful homemade watercolors that I got from a small business on Etsy. I will make sure to place a link to their store in the description. Anyway, these colors that I'm going to be swatching are based on Taylor Swift's new album and the albums that were covered in her Eras tour. So basically, the point of the watercolors are each color is based on a specific Taylor Swift album. I'm not going to be talking about anything to do with Taylor Swift. That doesn't have anything to do with my topic. I just wanted to explain my thinking on that's how the colors were created, and that led me to this topic, which was something that I guess I wanted to share. I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. I'm Gen X. I'm at that cusp of Gen X where we get forgotten about even more, right? Because it's almost at the end of that generation. However, my older sister is firmly Gen X, and so my upbringing tended to be more along the lines of Gen X than millennial. I was an adult before the internet truly entered my life. So all that to say, my childhood was very reminiscent of Gen X. Okay. What I want to talk about is one of my obsessions when I was younger, and I absolutely love it if somebody could create a watercolor set based on the albums of my obsession. Because let me tell you, I would be like, take my money. Here's my Apple Pay right now. Not even kidding you. I would buy that in a heartbeat. So you may be saying, Shannon, who was your obsession? All right. So it's probably not going to come to a big surprise to anyone that actually knows me, right? But my obsession should have given me some very deep clues onto some things that I would later come to realize in my life. But from the tender young age of 10, maybe even 9, but definitely 10, I was obsessed with Madonna. Madonna was my everything. My walls were covered with posters of Madonna. I loved her. I loved her music. I wanted to be her. I dressed like her. Someone needs to create for me a watercolor set based on Borderline, right? Because that was the epitome of Madonna for me. When I think of Madonna, I think of Borderline, not just the song, but the album. That's where Madonna started. It's like the quintessential Madonna when I think of her anyways. I was so deeply enthralled with her. When I was younger, we didn't have the internet that you could just go and look up information about your celebrity crushes or your celebrity that you were obsessed with. So we had to go check books out from the library, or if we could get our hands on magazines that had articles about them, we would do that as well. But most of my information on her came from books that I was able to check out from the library. One book in particular that I got in trouble for not returning, there's a whole story behind that I'm not going to get into, but let's just say I didn't return it to the library. It was not my fault. Somebody took it away from me as punishment, and then they lost it. Yeah. By the way, I had to pay for that book. Yeah. Okay. So during that time, I'm not even sure I could tell you what other celebrities really existed, because in my mind, Madonna was the only one that was worth paying attention to. And as much as it pains me to give my age away here, but even 38 years later, I can still tell you her full name, because most people know her just as Madonna, but I was such a big fan, I knew her full name. I continued to follow her discography even as she continued to put out new albums and CDs and whatnot. And I still love her music today, right? I think that her influence and her music was such a big part of my formative years that they've stayed with me. So here's the weird thing. I never actually got to ever see her in concert. When I was younger, obviously I was a kid. Oh, and by the way, concerts when I was younger, you couldn't order them online, right? You couldn't just call up Ticketmaster and order them. You had to actually go to a physical place that sold tickets for Ticketmaster. So people would go, I want to say JC Penney's or someplace like that was a Ticketmaster sale. And so people would go line up. Like you've seen people line up for the release of movies and for the release of gaming systems. That is what they did for tickets to concerts. They would camp out overnight at wherever Ticketmaster sales were. I don't remember. I think that they were some at the mall, but people would camp out to try to get tickets. Yeah, it was a thing. Anyways, I was a child from a very poor family. So So we did not have money to get tickets to go see concerts. That just didn't happen. The other part is, I honestly can't tell you if Madonna has ever actually toured anywhere close to my little Midwest town. Most of the places that get concerts around us 4 to 6 hours away. Sometimes people will come through Iowa, but it's just not as common. So I don't know if Madonna has ever actually toured in Iowa. She may have, but I've lived here most of my life. There was about 5 years where I didn't live here, so she may have toured during that time, but the rest of the time, I don't remember ever hearing about her coming anywhere nearby. With having to travel 4 hours away to see someone, that usually would include a hotel stay. That just adds more money onto something that we already couldn't afford. I didn't really get to see many concerts. I would have loved to have seen Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac or Florence and the Machines too, but I don't know if any of them have ever come to Iowa. Should probably pay more attention to that. Anyways, back to Madonna. Madonna, my lifelong obsession, right? I did own all her albums, and I say albums in quotation because they were actually cassette tapes. As they came out, I somehow was able to get my hands on them. But here's the fun thing, that when I was a kid, we owned cassette tapes. Albums were still a big thing too. You might own something on albums, but we couldn't just stream music. So we had the option of buying the music once it was finally released, or we could record it from the radio. We often did this. And then we used those recordings to make mixtapes. But in order to do that, you had to know when the song was going to play. And a lot of times the radio DJs, like at the top of the hour, they would be like, coming this hour, and they would list off a couple people that they were going to play that hour or whatever. So you'd have to sit by the stereo the entire time with your fingers on the record button, just waiting for the song that you wanted to play so that you could hit record as soon as it started. This was a whole big thing. But once you got it on tape, then we had these really awesome boom boxes because it was the 80s. And then you could dub that song onto another tape. And that's how I made the mixtapes. Anyways, so this was a thing. This was how you got the music that you wanted to listen to so that you could play it over and over again if you weren't able to purchase the tape. But I did own the first couple albums of hers on cassette. I had Borderline for sure. I had True Blue for sure. I think I had a couple others, but I'm not 100% on which ones they were. We all had MTV at that time, so you could go and watch the music videos and listen to it on MTV. However, poor kid, no cable, no MTV. So that only actually happened if I was over at a friend's house and they had MTV, right? Okay, so back to Madonna. Madonna, my obsession, right? Oddly enough, my cousin was also obsessed with her. My cousin's one of my best friends. She's 9 months younger than me. You will probably hear me talk about her in my stories because she's a big part of my life, along with my 2 other best friends, one whom I've had since high school and one whom I've had since my early 20s. We're all the 4 Musketeers because it's 4 of us, not 3 of us. I think I talked about as an adult, once I had the money, I don't remember Madonna touring anywhere near me. Okay, so back on topic here. Somebody out there make me a homemade watercolor set based off of Madonna songs, please. Also, if you want to make a set based off of Fleetwood Mac songs, particularly from the Rumors album and Florence and the Machine, I would absolutely adore you. And I'm probably not the only one, just saying. So for all of you watercolor artists, like watercolor makers out there, this is a call to you. We need these in our lives. Okay. All right. That brings me to Desperately Seeking Susan. I love movies, but there are few movies that I can honestly say I absolutely loved and have made a huge impact on my life. Desperately Seeking Susan is one of them. The style of the way Madonna dressed in that movie stuck with me for years. All right. So that gives you a good visual of what Shannon dressed like. In my early teenage years, I definitely took my style from, it was that punk look that Madonna had in Desperately Seeking Susan. And that kind of morphed right into I got stage, which was not really a stage because it never really left. Like it was punk, goth, and then grunge because I was a teenager in the 90s. Grunge was big. Flannel was phenomenal. The flannel that they have now sucks. It was not like 90s flannel. There was something different about it. So that is the evolution of my style. Punk, goth, grunge, pajamas, which is what I'm in now. Pajamas. There you go. That's a short rundown of the style of Shannon. Okay, I know that this has been extremely rambly, and most of my videos are probably going to be extremely rambly. It's just who I am. That's actually the kind of videos that I like to watch, are the rambly ones, because I like to put them on in the background and just listen to people talk, listen to people tell stories. So that's my story of my obsession with Madonna. Also, should have been a very clear indicator when I was younger that I was not straight, that I was queer as could be. But bless little Shannon's heart, she didn't have a clue. That was not something that I figured out until much later in life. All right, that has also been quite an evolution, but a story for another time. All right, until then, friends, stay cool. Give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you would love to support me in a free way. Also, my email, you can sign up for my email list, which is another free way you can support me. And also, I got lots of goodies that you get when you sign up for my email. So if you would like goodies, you can check those out in the link in the description. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Love you.